Welcome to this video on writing reference letters for students. My name is Cecile Badenhorst and I'm a professor in the Faculty of Education at Memorial University. Referees reports are incredibly important to a student's chances of accessing grant funding and furthering their careers. If all the applications are strong, then it's the referees' reports that will often sway the reading committee. They make a big difference. So before writing the letter, there are a couple of things you might want to think about. First of all, only agree to write a reference letter if you can emphatically endorse a candidate. So candidates should approach you before they request a letter, and you have the right to decline. It could be because you don't know the person that well, or you're not familiar with their research, or you might not be the best person to write for them. But don't intentionally write a bad letter. This can really be harmful to a student's progress. If you don't want to write the letter, decline the offer. And don't write the letter if you don't know the student well enough. You can always tell the students, I don't have time, and allow them to find someone else who does. And if you don't have time, don't agree to write a letter, because then the student is left in the lurch when it comes to the deadline. So get all the information you need from the student before writing the letter: the CV, transcripts, proposal, leadership statements if necessary, as well as any guidelines and specific instructions. But if you find at the end of the day you can't write a positive letter, then rather decline than write a negative letter. Once you've decided you will write the letter, then you can move into a planning stage, and the planning stage might be around looking at the specific instructions for the letter. So for example, for grants, the letter would be focused around a research project. For admission to schools, the letter will be focused on grades and capabilities. And don't talk about things that the letter doesn't ask for, particularly personal information, unless it's specifically asked for. And even if they want weaknesses, try and stay positive. Now you can include whatever you want, but here are a few suggestions for a format in a way. So you might begin with the header, which is the university logo or department's address and date. You would include a salutation to whoever the letter is being sent to, an opening paragraph where you state the purpose of the letter, who you are, and why you are qualified to write this letter. The body would address the specific requirements, closing paragraph where you endorse the candidate, and then your signature typed and signed. Once you move into writing the letter, you might begin by setting up your credibility as a reference. State how you know the student, in what capacity and for how long. Explain your qualifications, and you're really convincing the reader that your opinion matters here. Then in the body of the letter, you might want to organize it by grouping comments. For example, academic work, a paragraph on academic work, another on leadership if that's relevant, research expertise, and the proposed research project, and so on. You might also want to provide a narrative, because this gives a coherence. In the first section, I give an account of the exemplary scholar I know this person to be. In the second section, I show the research taking shape. Use evidence from the student CV, from the data they've provided you. So for example, provide an assessment of academic excellence, assessment of research potential, show the significance of the research to the field or the discipline, the broader applications, the ability of the student to carry out the research, assessment of leadership ability if this is something that's required, mention how and why the student stands out from peers, comments on extracurricular activities and outstanding personality traits if they are relevant. If you provide a sparsely written letter, this can leave the reader with an impression that the reference is negative. So the more detail and evidence you provide, for all your paragraphs and points, the stronger the letter will be. Examples of strong phrases include, this is the mark of an individual who has the potential to take advantage of, inspires confidence, a scholar of rare talents, a rare individual, a motivated individual who inspires others, exceptional, outstanding, has professional research skills. I recommend him, her, them in the strongest sense, can work well with others in challenging circumstances, has demonstrated abilities as a leader and mentor. An investment in an early career researcher would be worthwhile or deserves your support. Neutral wording or ambiguous phrases can imply criticism. Sometimes comments about the appropriateness of the supervisor and or supervisory committee and the institution is necessary as well in these letters of reference. Being supportive doesn't mean falsifying information. It just means being positive about this student. So you can stick to the truth and be positive. Another thing to remember is that referees' letters need to be multidisciplinary in nature. Although we are specialists in our discipline, we're often writing to specialists in other disciplines on the committee. So our role is to emphasize the importance of the research proposal and the research and why it is applicable to this particular committee. There are lots of excellent resources with word and phrase options, and here are a few. You can pause the video and take a look at these sources if you feel it's necessary. What we'd like to talk about now is biased language. It's very easy for biasness to appear in our language. So let's take a look at gender bias. This particular study of 300 letters of recommendation found that letters for women were systematically different from those written for men. So women's letters contained more doubt-raising, hesitancy or faint praise, and hedges were more common in women's letters. For example, this is an independent worker. She requires only a minimum amount of supervision. Similar comments for men were unequivocal. He appears to be a highly motivated colleague. They also found a common bias of her teaching and his research, which tends to portray women as teachers and students and men as researchers and professionals. Be aware also of naming bias, where men are referred to as doctor or their titles, and women by their first names. Also, try to avoid stereotypical terms. Men are often referred to as successful, accomplished achievers, while women are referred to as caring, compassionate, and helpful. There's nothing wrong with these words in and of themselves, but when they provide a systematic, stereotypical view of women, that's when it becomes a problem. Avoid grandiose, grindstone adjectives, for example, hardworking, conscientious, dependable, thorough, dedicated, careful, which all imply women have to work hard in the absence of ability. Men's letters tended to have standout adjectives, for example, excellent, superb, outstanding, unique, exceptional, unparalleled. Letters for men focused on and mentioned research much more than women's letters. And women letter writers are just as susceptible to gender bias as men. Here are a few more sources for you if you want to follow up on this and read up on more of how gender bias slips into our letter writing. And now we'll move on to racial bias. So in the same way, so very similar to gender bias, racial bias follows many of these. So focus on accomplishments, achievements, mention research and publications, avoid doubt-raising, surprisingly adept, avoid grindstone adjectives, works hard, Avoid mentioning foreignness or international students. Use formal titles and avoid personal information, and avoid stereotypes, someone with their upbringing or someone who's had has had a challenging background. We've provided some sources for you if you want to follow up and read up on reference letters in more detail. We've only touched the surface here. We just wanted to introduce a few of the issues and to help you, go about planning and preparing and then writing your letter, and to think about the language that you're using. Thank you very much for watching this video. We hope that you found it helpful.